everybody for joining us today. We're excited to have another session of our Day in the Life series. I think everybody here knows who I am, but I'm Sophia Gibbery. I'm the director of the Upward Bound program. I'm excited to welcome you all to this session. Today we have our Assistant Vice President of Data Analytics and Insights for CCS Fundraising. So there's some information about who she is projected on the screen, but Jessica joined CCS Fundraising in 2015 and has over 18 years of experience in nonprofit fundraising management and consulting. She has developed holistic fundraising and development strategies for a wide range of clients using advanced analytics. Jessica has held leadership roles in annual and major giving, donor relations, event planning, and data analytics. In her current role, she helps clients define, build, and implement fundraising strategies. Jessica serves as a project manager and advanced analytics subject matter expert for directors and executives. Development is a career path she has chosen to follow since college. She worked her way up from a student caller and manager at Binghamton University. Jessica holds an MS in nonprofit and fundraising management from Columbia University. She has a BS in management with concentrations in marketing and consulting and organizational leadership from Binghamton University. Now that I've had the chance to introduce Jessica, she is going to jump into her presentation. Thanks everybody for joining, and thanks Jessica for joining us today.
Of course, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be speaking with you all today. So I thought it would be helpful to share, starting off with my high school journey and then how that led to my career path and helped me to excel in my career. And I'll also be talking about the day in life kind of my role in working in a global consulting firm. So if you can go on to the next slide, please. So just kind of get a little bit of a snapshot of what I did in high school. Running was really my passion. I ran all 3 seasons, cross country, indoor and outdoor track. I helped coach a middle school track team. I started off really as a novice runner, but really worked hard to become a top 3 runner on the team, as well as be ranked in the top 50 runners in cross country, Massachusetts. I won things like Unsung Hero Award. I was a cross country captain. In addition to that, working was always really important to me. I started working when I was 11. So I worked in the mall in Eddie Bauer. I also was a teacher's assistant in my high school. I also did mentoring when I was a senior to freshman students and did tutoring and was on the honor roll. So kind of all that is starting to tell you the story before I kind of get into how that led to me going to Binghamton University. So I've always enjoyed building relationships and truly getting to know the individual. And when I was a senior in high school and a captain of cross country in Massachusetts, I had a new cross country coach who was from New York. And while discussing colleges, she suggested that I apply to Binghamton University. Now, I was from Massachusetts, so I really hadn't heard of Binghamton at the time. Obviously, things have really changed. The reputation's amazing of Binghamton. I just had never heard of it. So I was applying to, schools that were really affordable near me. So other state schools in the New England area. But shortly after I applied to Binghamton, I was accepted and just really felt really like there was a close contact between the current students and myself, really trying to make me feel like I'd be connected, especially since I was coming from out of state. So people would call me all the time. They invited me to an internet chat room for out-of-state students, which, it's before social media. So I really got to meet people before even accepting the offer to attend Binghamton. And that experience was really how a personal connection helped me to really understand that, once you get to know the person and feel, what kind of drives them, is really the rationale behind trying to figure out how to give back in any way. So that all kind of led me to Binghamton University, and then kind of into the next slide showing you my career. So I recently cleaned out a box in my parents' attic and found some of my college papers, and I thought it'd be fun to include an article about my passion for fundraising that was written almost 16 years ago. I'm not going to read it, but you can get a sense of how I started my career at Binghamton. Again, always really enjoyed building those relationships, was working in different programs, such as I was a marketing intern for the basketball team. I was a teacher's assistant. So I just, besides working at the Telefund, I also was working around campus and other jobs just to really get involved. So I've always enjoyed building relationships, as I said, and using data to really inform decisions and be more efficient. So Binghamton's where I started my career. And, one of the reasons why I decided to attend again was because of all those personal connections. I worked in the BU admissions team first, which was to essentially welcome students that had been accepted but hadn't made a decision yet. So kind of similar to what had been done for me, people calling me to ask about any questions. So I did that for about a semester when I was a freshman, and that program was actually cut because of funding. So I decided, why not work at the BU Telephone Center, where, money's being raised so that we don't have to cut as many programs. Was really successful as a telephone caller, raising, I think, over $130,000 over my time there, and was promoted to a manager. So I helped oversee a shift of 16 student callers when I was the manager. And then as soon as I graduated, I thought that I was going to work at Macy's, because I actually had an internship at Macy's and was offered a job there. But I really decided that I wanted to continue to work in fundraising. And in 2007, my mom thought I was crazy, declining this great job with Macy's to try to work in fundraising. But I did it, and I started working in New York City as a development coordinator at International House. And from there, I went on to Fordham University. I was the director of development at Columbia while receiving my master's in that nonprofit and fundraising management. And then from there, I got a job at my current company, CCS Fundraising, and I was a general consultant, and then switched to this team that was really an up-and-coming program where I was a director of data insights and client engagements. And then finally was promoted, and the team has really grown, and the projects have certainly grown too, to becoming assistant vice president of data analytics. So you can see here, I started in 2016 in this department, but we were in 2018, we had 54 projects, and we're on track this year to have 140 projects. So you can imagine the amount of growth we've had on the team. We started off with 2.5 employees. Now I think we're up to 8. And, I really love what I do, because I work with nonprofits all over the world, all different sizes. I've worked with monks to multi-national hospitals and institutions. So it's just a really cool job to have, to be able to work with so many different clients. The challenge obviously always being, just keeping up with all the projects that I have. So on our team, project management is really important, and we're constantly using tracking services. We use something called Monday.com just to make sure that we keep on track. Great. So the essence of my job is to find opportunity in a client's database. So I apply appropriate analytics tools for each project, and it could be RFM, which is a historical analysis for each prospect, or modeling, which is using regression analysis for those who have completed stats. You can think of really it finding the needles in the haystack, right? So there's lots of hay. We want to find the needles to really find those good prospects that can become major donors. And then we look at the whole CRM database, which could be, millions of records. And we find those best prospects utilizing those advanced statistical tools, as well as overlapping with screening data, so that we can ultimately overlap those that have a strong affiliation to the nonprofit that we're representing, and then but also have the capacity. So we want to really see that intersection. And what this chart does is, this is the actual part of the wealth screening. So this would be, the capacity. We show this example as just a breakdown of everyone that was screened. And it shows us by those that have given in dark blue and have not given in teal. And estimated capacity provides an evaluation of how much a household can give to all charities they support over a 5-year period. So it's really important when talking to households to really know where the organization falls in their philanthropic priorities. And we do find that the wealthier households tend to have a more conservative capacity because they have their wealth in undisclosed sources such as trusts. And this screening is not a crystal ball, right? But it's really a tool for us to help narrow down to target and segment a manageable list of prospects. And so that's kind of the first step, layering on that capacity with that affiliation. So here, this is a slide that a lot of our clients like, not super actionable, but our clients like it because it shows it by gift capacity, the colors. It shows, where they are located around the country. And, if someone's, for instance, traveling somewhere, which prospects to meet with. You can see there's some in the Broome County area, which is pretty cool. But again, just really a good way to just show where all the prospects are located. I would have had a few more slides, but obviously didn't want to get too in the weeds. So, when we narrowed down the prospects, we, combined a lot of analytics tools. There's the capacity, there's RFM, there's giving. So here this is our world famous onion chart because it brings everything together. So it looks at all the records that were in the CRM, the database, to looking at those that were the most likely to make a major gift. And we call it an onion chart because you can kind of peel back the layers. Once you've exhausted the 280, for example, you can move on to what's left in that next ring, which is the 3,735. And our clients really resonate with this slide just because it kind of shows them the next process they need to do once they exhaust that 280. Another kind of helpful slide for analysis and day in the life of me. So we look at the capacity. So it shows us the capacity that this client is capturing by looking at 5-year giving for those 280 households. And then we divide that by the capacity that we obtain from screening. And so what we're seeing is when we do that, they're capturing about 3%. This is not a forecasting tool by any means, but a scenario generation to show you really if there was more targeted relationship building and strategies that we could really be increasing the capacity for this client. So for instance, if you got the capacity increase to 15%, that would increase to 7.2 million from 9 million, from the 1.8 million raised, and then subtracted from the 9 million. So I've thrown a lot at you today. Hopefully you take away just even one thing. That's always super helpful. But my advice is really, learn as much as possible about subjects that you're passionate about. So whether that's academic or, some kind of extracurricular, just be passionate about something, because I think that will lead you to so many opportunities, whether that's in college or your job, because the whole point of my presentation was to show you, where you start from, how you get from point A to point Z, and how connections really help. So, just really, getting to know people and understanding, how to network is really important. And I'd also say, don't be afraid to try something out of your comfort zone. I was thrown into this position at my job, and I always have loved data, but it was very new to me, this role. And so, I was anxious when I first started it, but, I ended up really loving it. So you just don't know if you don't try, right? And then again, just networking, right? So it sounds silly. I have a 7-year-old and I always tell him to be kind and nice. But just be nice to everyone and make connections, because you just never know how you can work with that person in the future. And get as much involvement as you can in high school and college. I can't stress this enough, always find a mentor, whether that's in high school, college, your first career, when you're kind of mid-level in your career, because a mentor is someone that can help you kind of figure out a situation, right? If you're having trouble, and kind of, not go directly to the person that you're necessarily having trouble with or the situation. And they just kind of give you a good sounding board. I've always had mentors my whole life. And I think that is really important to just always have that sounding board. And then, it's obviously always great to be doing what you love, but there's going to be times where you don't love what you're doing. So when that happens, you can decide if you're going to kind of accept that, or, you can make a plan and really figure out what the steps are to get to the goals in which you want to accomplish to get to that project that you love. And my last one is always thank people, whether that's a thank you note or an email, even a text, just acknowledging if someone has met with you, that that it was helpful, and thanking them for their time. So that's the end of the presentation. I don't know if there's any questions.
I'll start off in asking, so you mentioned relationship building and fundraising. Do you have any tips for students that are eager to start raising funds, but don't know where to start, are nervous about building those relationships?
Yeah, so I would say that's practice, right? So find someone that's in the industry that you are looking to be in. So if that's, fundraising, then look for someone that has been fundraising for at least 5 or 10 years and really work, really have some questions to ask them, right? Like, how did they get to where they were? What are the skills that you need to have, that kind of thing. I think it's just so important to always have informational interviews with people when possible. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. So it looks like I have a direct message question. What
Sure.
did you take in college to help you achieve your goal?
So I was a marketing major. That's what I came in for. And I had taken some extra classes over summer so that I could graduate early. I decided that I wasn't going to graduate early, that I wanted to take on a separate concentration. So I ended up taking on leadership and organizational behavior. And that actually really helped me and was pivotal in my career, because all those classes were about how to be a good leader, how to be a good follower, and just really understanding how to take emotion out of a situation so you can really just be clear-headed. So I'd say like all those classes were just super helpful. And also just my marketing classes, and I did take psychology too. That's all helpful. And of course, taking stats for my job, super important. So I think it's a kind of a blend of stuff that you're super passionate about, and then stuff that you think that you need to know but not be an expert in, that you should take courses in.
How did you get your organization out in the world?
So it's not my organization. I work for CCS Fundraising, and we have been around for 75 years. We started off really small. CCS stands for Community Consulting Services. So it started off almost being like social work, helping religious organizations to raise funds, because that really wasn't being done strategically. But then over the years, our firm has really professionalized. I think when I started, there was about 200 employees. Now there's 500, and we're global. So as far as how did we get the organization out, I would say, it's just marketing, right? Doing, your work speaks for yourself. So when you hire really good people and everyone produces really good work, then that's kind of how you get these nonprofits to start working with you. I hope I answered that question, right?
I think so. Can you talk a little bit about where your passion for fundraising comes from?
Yeah, I'd say I've always had it. So I would come to New York City quite frequently when I was a child. My parents both went to college in New York, and I have some relatives that live in New York. And I was pretty young, but I was probably like 7 in the early 90s, probably before all of you were, way before all of you were born. And if you know anything about New York history in the 90s, it was pretty bad as far as the homeless population and crime and everything. And I just had never seen so many homeless people when I was a child, and I just wanted to save everybody. So I just remember like bringing all my like allowance money, like, nickels, dimes, whatever, with me when I would go from Massachusetts to New York, and I would just hand out, pennies, quarters, whatever, to homeless people, and also, maybe buy a sandwich for someone. And that I did it so much that actually I associated coffee cups with change, like putting a change into the coffee cup, because people, sometimes would shake these coffee cups. That a couple times when I was little, I'd actually throw a quarter in someone's actual coffee cup that was drinking coffee. So gotta be careful for that. But yeah, just really from a young age, I just really wanted to help people.
Nice. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of our students have that same passion. So it's cool that you can talk about helping people in different ways. It doesn't always have to be that direct social worker or support professional.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Another question I have here is, were there ever moments that were challenging? Did you ever think of giving up?
Yeah, I think, look, I've been working full time for 16 years. So I think that's a good amount of time where you're going to find times you want to give up. I'd say, kind of early on in my career working full time, I think I struggled not with my job, but with working, like just understanding, like, you're going to be working 40 hours a week and what that actually means, and, all this absorbing information. Because when you go from, college, where everything is kind of theoretical, to actually doing it, it just can be kind of challenging. So what I learned was, one, to literally take notes on everything and ask so many questions to the point where it's probably even annoying, because I think like sometimes when someone's explaining something to you, whether they're a supervisor or, just a colleague, they might not be realizing that something they're saying isn't clear to you. So I think just always asking questions and really summarizing what someone says helps. So that was a big challenge for me in the beginning, just kind of understanding how to be part of the workforce.
Yeah, that's definitely solid advice. Kind of building on that, when you were first starting off, or even when you were developing skills in college, are there specific skills that you recommend our students learn?
So there's, soft skills, hard skills, right? All that. I think in this world, you have to understand, Excel pretty well, or, something that's comparable to Excel. I think just understanding data is really important, because I think any role that you're in, whether you're an administrator or, assistant or what you end up being, a lot of times you're going to have to, use a computer really well, right? So I know that for me, understanding Excel has really helped me in my career, because when I started off in fundraising, it wasn't, data wasn't as much of a focus. So to even know Excel a little bit was a huge benefit, because a lot of people were doing things like I started off doing at Fordham, I was doing direct mail, which means I was sending out letters to alumni and parents and things. And it would be like 30,000 records, right? And they would just do some things that were manual, taking out donors one by one that maybe made a gift that they didn't want to mail to. And I just, I took a couple of trainings on my own to really understand formulas so that I can make it more efficient. And, once you learn a couple things, it's, if you understand how to apply it, you can start building from there. So that really helped. And then when I went on to Columbia, I was kind of seen as like the Excel expert. And then even at this job, people understood that I was good at Excel. So that's what kind of made me fall into the role that I have now, because I'm working with data scientists and people that have, stats backgrounds, whether that's a master's or an undergrad or computer science. I don't have that, technical skill set like they do, but because I have a working knowledge of it, and because I have the fundraising aptitude that they actually don't have, I can kind of mirror that. And again, it's kind of about, connections and networking and how I keep talking about that, but it's like just being able to apply the things and just making yourself, kind of as marketable as you can.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good themes that you kind of touched on there. One, like finding what makes you stand out, right? So that's something. And then it sounds like you got ahead of Excel, right? So if you are in the position as a student to see that there's a skill or there's a software, just getting ahead of that so you can stand out more. And then kind of taking it one step at a time and like building your skills so you don't feel overwhelmed by it. Is there a particular experience with a mentor that really helped you get where you are today that you wanted to talk about more?
Yeah, there's been a lot. So I would say, even just starting off at Binghamton, really, I felt very lucky that I guess I met the right people. Just everyone wanted me to succeed, right? So when I worked in the telefund, my boss wanted me to succeed, her boss wanted me to succeed. So they urged me to apply to a conference where I got a scholarship, and then I was able to meet a lot of people in the industry. So I'd say that's why I kind of mentioned like any part of your career, or if you're in college or high school or whatever, just always find someone that kind of has your back, if you will, because you can just float ideas off of them. And since they're more knowledgeable than you are, right? They know, they can think of things that you wouldn't think of, and they can make those connections for you, right? So I had no idea that there was this conference that I could attend if I applied and, wrote an essay and all that, which just further solidified that I wanted to be in this industry, because at that point I was still thinking I was going to work at Macy's. So that is one thing, one mentor experience, just with the staff at Binghamton. And then I would just say, even peers, right? So in my fundraising and nonprofit management program from Columbia University, just, I was working with really interesting people that worked really hard in the program. And I think just, being open to learning from them and then learning from you, I felt like pretty much all of them were kind of mentors. I was their mentor. They were my mentor. A lot of us were references for each other. So I think it's just finding relationships and mentors. And sometimes a mentor is like a formal thing, and sometimes it's just really informal. And I think that would be the example. The informal would be, like my classmates. But, we've helped each other get different jobs and things like that. So.
Yeah, networking is definitely key. Also, you all heard that she said her mentors helped her introduce her to things that she wasn't sure about at first. So when we're referencing things for everybody. Just keep that in mind, have that open mind. Looks like a question from a student here. What are the things that you fundraise for?
Yeah, so I I have done over I think almost 600 unique client projects. So worked with clients of all sizes. We're usually fundraising. It depends what the organization is. It could be like a high school. So we'd be, fundraising for different programs in the school, for instance. Uh, we might be fundraising for a campaign, which just means a large effort, where it's a certain period of time where you want to raise a lot of money to maybe build a new building, that kind of thing. So there's capital components, which is the building. There is organizational support, which would be like student scholarships, that kind of thing. And then sometimes it's just to keep the organization like afloat, to make sure that there's donors to kind of keep the legacy going, right? So that would be an endowment, which just means some money raised that's basically invested over time, just to make sure that there's enough money to have like a school be run, over time, that kind of thing.
Nice. Another question. If you didn't choose your current job, where do you think you would be today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think about that all the time. Well, I think if I didn't pick my current job, I probably would still be in fundraising. But I guess if I go way back and didn't, find my passion for fundraising, at Binghamton, I probably would have gotten that job at Macy's, which was to be an assistant buyer, which means you go to different vendors and you look at clothing or accessories, that kind of thing, and you decide what is going to be in the store at Macy's. And then maybe I would have worked my way up, but I really wasn't that passionate. So it's like hard for me to say what I would have done. Maybe I would have tried sales. I thought that was kind of something I would be good at. But yeah, no, it's really interesting. I don't know what I would do. Also, not to mention, I started working in 2007, and the financial crisis happened pretty quickly into my career. So I think like if I worked at a place like Macy's, I might have even been laid off, versus my job. Anything in fundraising is, if you're raising money, it's pretty crucial. I mean, there could be some cuts, but usually you'll be kind of last to go because you're helping, support the institution and make sure that it stays afloat.
Yeah, always interesting to do those hypothetical exercises. So if there was one piece of advice that you wish somebody took you aside when you were in high school and said to you, or I don't know, something motivational, what do you think it would be?
I would say like just don't overlook any opportunity. I'm an introvert by nature, but I've like taught myself to be outgoing, just to really get to know people. I think, the more people like the better, and build these genuine relationships. I just can't stress that enough. I know I've probably said that 20 times today, but the more people just the better communication and networking you can do. And I also would say just always like try to remember the conversations you have with people, because there's nothing more frustrating if you don't remember, if you're talking to someone and they don't remember something you were talking about. So I think always trying to remember stuff, and it's not that you have to like keep it in your head, but write it down. Like if you met someone for the first time at a networking event or something, and you're like, I need to remember their name, I need to remember what they do, I need to remember what interests them, that kind of thing. Just like put a note on your phone or something. So I think it's just always kind of networking and making the person feel special and being genuine about that.
Yeah, definitely great advice. So any other questions, whether people want to send them direct message or unmute themselves? definitely feel free to do so.
And I would say one more thing too, LinkedIn is really powerful. So, I would say join, as soon as it kind of makes sense, maybe towards the end of high school. And people message me all the time that I don't know. And sometimes I don't feel comfortable speaking with them for whatever reason. But a lot of times I do speak with them, even if it's like a complete stranger, because I'm just always willing to give advice. So I think just always remembering too that it doesn't have to be someone that you meet face to face. It could really be anyone, that's in a field that you're interested in pursuing, and just kind of have an informational interview. What I mean by that is just have some questions that you want to ask them, and really get their opinions about things and understand, what their day-to-day is like. So again, just want to kind of stress that.
Yeah, definitely important. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for taking the time to speak with us and all of our students. Thanks for to our students for attending. It's good to see you all virtually. And yeah, I hope everybody has a good rest of their day.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone having me today.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.